Welcome back to The Explainer. So let's just jump right into it. Today we're unpacking a seriously dense, profoundly gritty, two-part sci-fi epic. Honestly, if you're a fan of dystopian science fiction, deep political nuances, and incredibly complex character development, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to map out exactly how this story transitions from raw, bloody survival in the dirt, where every single day is literally a visceral fight just to take your next breath, to a mind-bending exploration of cosmic-level systemic control. We're talking about a journey that drags us through the absolute worst of a ruined Earth, only to pull back the curtain on something way more sinister hiding in the sterile shadows. Okay, clown, cockroach mutants from Mars? Yeah, I know, it sounds completely unhinged. But look, when you first crack open Book 1, Ashes of the Old World, the sheer absurdity and chaos of the threats make it seem like a pretty straightforward, if totally bizarre, post-apocalyptic survival story. Our characters are literally fighting for their lives in a ruined city, desperately scavenging for canned goods while fending off terrifying mutated carcassoids and wildly aggressive clown factions. The world feels deeply grounded, incredibly brutal, and completely chaotic. Like you can practically taste the ash in the air.
But then, we get hit with this chilling realization that completely pivots the entire narrative. The world didn't fall, it was taken. Boom. This single devastating line establishes right out of the gate that we're not just looking at another standard zombie or mutant survival story. No, we are looking at a meticulously designed puzzle box. The chaos, it's not random. The horror actually has a design, and someone, somewhere, is holding the blueprints.
To fully understand this story, we really need to look at its meticulously designed structure. So here's our agenda for this explainer. First, surviving the engineered chaos. Second, finding patterns in the noise. Third, entering the sterile nexus. Fourth, unpacking the architect's grand design. And finally, escaping to the Red Planet.
All right, let's start with Part 1, Surviving the Engineered Chaos, covering Book 1, Ashes of the Old World. This is where we get thrown right into the brutal reality of a ruined city absolutely teeming with monstrous threats. As you'll see, this series brilliantly juxtaposes two completely different realities for heavy, hard sci-fi impact. First, we've got the desperate, brutal survival among the ruins, scavenging for scraps, building armored trucks just to make it down the street, and fighting tooth and nail against mutants. But then, contrast that with the reality of Book 2, clean, sterile, monetized control systems. The sheer whiplash between those blood-soaked streets and these gleaming, untouched comfort hallways, it completely changes how you view those early, desperate chapters. And to survive this massive, dramatic shift in their reality, our court trio must rapidly evolve. I mean, they're forced to shift from desperate scavengers into intentional rebellion leaders just to keep up with the changing threats. Dr. Lucky goes from a desperate survivor trying to claw his way out of a ruined grocery store to a hardened tactical combat leader. Astra shifts from a quiet, resourceful scavenger into a master system hacker, capable of tearing down firewalls. And Gem, oh, this is so absolutely vital to the plot, evolves from a baseline survivor into a key tactical negotiator. She literally learns how to manipulate the very systems and people trying to crush them, becoming the true linchpin of their whole operation.
Which brings us right to Part 2, finding patterns in the noise and uncovering the invisible strings.
The creeping horror really sets in when our protagonists realize the chaos is actually highly coordinated. Astra and Dr. Lucky start following this breadcrumb trail that slowly shatters everything they thought they knew about the apocalypse. Just one day into their fortified community, they notice the terrifying clown attacks aren't random at all. They're actually moving with military precision. By week 1, Dr. Lucky cuts open a mutant corpse and finds strange advanced tech embedded directly inside it. Then, at the 1-month mark, trapped in an abandoned mall, they uncover ghost logs from past survivors mentioning an architect and these meticulously controlled zones. And the final nail in the coffin comes at 2 months, when they intercept a structured artificial broadcast. This is the horrifying turning point where they definitively prove that the world's threats are actually engineered. This dangerous investigation leads them straight to the epicenter of control at the end of Book 1, The Nexus. Just imagine a pristine, untouched courthouse standing right in the middle of a bombed-out wasteland, heavily guarded by identical clone soldiers executing perfect, emotionless patrol patterns. Finding this untouchable fortress confirms their absolute worst fears. Someone is indeed pulling the strings, just watching them suffer from behind bulletproof glass. It's a brilliant cliffhanger, and it perfectly sets up the next phase.
So let's transition into Part 3, Entering the Sterile Nexus, covering Book 2, The Martian Gambit. This is exactly where the massive tonal shift occurs, as our trio actually breaches those pristine walls.
Obviously, breaching an impenetrable fortress requires intense finesse, and this is where Gem's evolution truly shines. Using her silver tongue, she tactically negotiates their way right past the clone guards, basically exploiting bureaucratic loopholes in their programming. Once inside, the jarring reality hits them hard. The trio finds themselves walking through clean, perfectly sterile labs filled with humming servers. They witness ordinary humans living under strict, highly regulated systems, essentially trading their freedom for artificial safety. It is the absolute, terrifying opposite of the desperate world they just fought their way through.
Let's dive right into Part 4, the architect's grand design. This is the political sci-fi core of our explainer, where we finally unpack the manipulative puppet master behind it all.
When they finally meet the architect, the horrifying truth is revealed in this rapid-fire sequence of absolute gut punches. The Carcazoids, engineered in a lab. The wildly aggressive clown factions, simply a psychological destabilization tool used to keep survivors disorganized and fearful. The collapse of the old world itself was completely, 100% intentional. And that so-called cure everyone in the wasteland is dying for, it's actually just a mechanism for monetized control. But the darkest truth of all, and this blew my mind, Earth is just a testbed for scalable control systems.
It all boils down to exactly one overarching goal. The world was intentionally destabilized for one reason: to build a perfectly monetized, scalable system out of engineered suffering. Every drop of blood spilled in Book 1, every desperate fight for a can of food, was literally nothing more than data for the architect's spreadsheet.
Which brings us to the climax, Part 5, Escaping to the Red Planet, War Inside Order. What actually happens when our protagonists violently reject the architect's perfect system?
Well, this system initiates a total lethal lockdown, but our trio is ready. They execute a perfectly balanced, three-pronged attack to survive the architect's countermeasures. Astra uses her evolved hacking skills to dismantle the digital infrastructure, taking down the security grids. Meanwhile, Dr. Lucky leads the brutal physical combat, holding off waves of perfect clone soldiers. And Gem uses her incredible mastery of human manipulation to turn the system's own desperate people against it, sparking a massive riot inside those pristine walls. By combining their unique skills, they begin to completely shatter the illusion of this perfect system.
But right at the climax of this war inside the Nexus, we get a massive, heartbreaking final twist. The mutant they fought so incredibly hard to secure, the holy grail they bled for, the vial they truly believed would save humanity and reverse the apocalypse, is not a cure. No way. It's a reset mechanism designed to wipe the slate clean.
This devastating revelation triggers a frantic, terrifying sequence of events. When they realize the mutant's true purpose, they also learn a sickening detail: the compound can't even be processed on Earth. Suddenly, all those subtle early hints of off-world infrastructure they uncovered, they make perfect, terrifying sense. With the reset mechanism counting down, they're forced to fight through a bloody, desperate gauntlet of clone soldiers just to reach the architect's hidden spacecraft. With absolutely no other options, they literally leave Earth behind, blasting off into the void toward Mars. The mission shifts entirely, in a matter of minutes, from saving their homeworld to fleeing it in sheer terror.
They leave Earth behind, thinking they've won, thinking they've finally broken the chains. But that frantic escape brings us to a devastating realization from the source material. We thought we were ending it. We were just being moved to the next phase. It is a bone-chilling moment when you realize that the protagonist's hard-fought victory, destroying the Nexus and escaping a dying planet, might actually just be another carefully calculated layer of the architect's endless manipulation.
Which leaves us with a final, deeply provocative question. Are we ever truly dismantling the system, or just moving to the next phase of control? It's a hallmark of brilliant, hard sci-fi to leave you questioning the very nature of rebellion, autonomy, and whether the house always wins. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this deep dive into the meticulously designed chaos of this world has left you with a lot to think about.